Oh, hello.
Hello.
It is I, uh, Jerry Holkins of PAX and Penny Arcade, and it is my intense pleasure to be joined by Thomas Olsson of Skeleton Crew Games. From what looks to be the superhero lair where you train to fight evil. I mean, that's certainly the look I'm getting from here. I see some rustic woods. There's the punching bag. And it seems like we've got some tasteful Olija branding over there behind your left shoulder. Can we get like the full view?
Sure. You want a little tour, maybe?
Show us where the magic happens, Tama.
So that's the Olija thing and a bunch of old stuff here. And so this place is like a workshop. It's a pretty old workshop. It's almost 100 years old, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a traditional workshop. It's just that what you're making in this traditional workshop is video games.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and is that in Kyoto?
Yeah, it's in Kyoto. Yeah.
Yeah. So Skeleton Crew Games. When you go to the page and you go down, I was expecting, because of the name, I was expecting a very small number of people, but it seems like this Skeleton Crew is quite large. Actually,
yeah, I mean, it started off a few years ago, let's say 4 or 5, I think, and it was very few of us. Skeleton Crew does mostly contracting and stuff and tech things, but yeah, it's a great company. It's interesting. It has it's very freestyle, sort of flat structure.
Yeah. Well, I was so Skeleton Crew. The name makes sense. So a lot of the work that happens is done for others, or maybe like assisting them, or maybe coming in at the end of a project to get it out. I saw that you guys worked with Cyanide and Happiness on Freakpocalypse. Is that right?
Probably. I'm not sure I followed that that episode.
I
tend to hide in my lair, so
yeah, exactly. You're making a very specific thing. No, the only reason I had called out Cyanide and Happiness is because at one point I used to hang out with that team at San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, nice.
And they used to, at one point, one of them could not get into the country. And so I had to write to our government and communicate to them that this was a real comic artist. They were important. They were culturally relevant. And it was okay for them to come into the country if at all possible.
Tends to happen with governments, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually know of 2 other teams that have, they actually both have some American developers in them, Q Games and 17-bit. And then I looked them up just to see, because I know that 17-bit had moved part of their deal over there as well. And all three of your studios are all in Kyoto. Like, what is it about Kyoto that attracts?
I'm not sure what happened initially, but like there is a first wave of guys like Q Games, Dylan Cuthbert, and
yeah, exactly.
So like there is Vitae's Giles Goddard, who was partly behind the snowboarding game, 1080 snowboarding game,
the classic.
And you probably know then Jake Casdell, who's
I do know Jake. Do you also know Jake?
Yeah, of course, yeah, great guy.
We can get him in here.
We should have.
No, we used to have. He had a really cool little studio. I mean, nothing on the order of this traditional lair, but he had a super cool studio just north a little bit of where we hold PAX in downtown Seattle. And let's be quite clear: the after party was at 17-bit. Yeah, you do the show, and then all the people who had basically spent 3 or 4 days talking as loud as they could to anyone they could possibly talk to about their game, all ended up there over the course of a night. Yeah, it was an absolute blast. But we can talk about Olija, and we should, because that's how we got you here. So after I beat it yesterday, and then I started watching the credits scroll, your name comes up a lot in the credits of the game, and it comes up like in a bunch of different areas that, to the extent that I think it's unfair. So I think it's unfair to be good at programming and at art and music and writing.
I mean, if you could see my code, you wouldn't say I'm good at programming.
Okay. I'll tell you that it executed on my machine, and nothing bad happened throughout the duration of it. But I feel like
that's why Skeleton Crew is around. And, without them, that wouldn't happen.
Okay, so when it says additional programming, it means the good programming.
Yeah, all the taping together and all. I mean, it works because of them. Basically, it wouldn't work without them.
So, what did you hand them at the end of the project?
Something close to a pile of trash.
Filth.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they figure out ways to port it and stuff. And I mean, I don't want to get into details because it's a bit boring, but they definitely like it wouldn't happen without them. Like especially on the technical side, that was the really most important part of their work.
The other thing that I noticed in the credits was that the last name Olsson comes up many times.
Oh yeah, brothers.
One never wants to assume. I can't say it's like, yes, everyone with the last name Olsson definitely knows each other, but there's a few cases in this exact thing. So I mean, how many Olssons did you pull together to work on this project?
On this one, I pulled two, except myself. I mean, which are so my two brothers, Emmanuel and Maxime, they're called. They both did one track for that game, and
one music track.
They're both musicians, and they have their thing going on as well back in France, and not related to games, but they often help around, and it clicks really fast. It's really nice to work with them because I get I can rely on them to get sometimes like a second wave of inspiration from what they do. And I don't have to explain them anything really. They just know what I'm into.
Well, yeah. So, if you grow up with people, they get it probably.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, but there is the last thing from this portion of it is that you actually have a shamisen player in the mix, and it's a big part of the it's a really big part of the experience is these plucks.
So yeah, the actual shamisen you can hear in the game is not there all the time. It's only in a few little arrangements and a few tracks. But basically, it's my wife who plays a bit, and we just
another Olsson, basically.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I didn't count this Olsson.
So fully 4 Olssons are being represented here.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't even think of it that way. That's true. Yeah.
They're all in. But yeah, the audio texture, there's something specific about, there's like 3 big sort of like resolutions or like art approaches to the game. You have like sort of the hand-drawn, like the really crisp hand-drawn stuff, and like the amazing animation, which everyone should go absolutely and watch. And then you have the sort of the presentation of the game proper, and then there's this great other sort of like demade one at the very beginning during the loading screen, and it's just like I would love to see that version.
Oh, you mean the one with the
really chunky, like pixels that are about this big
with a huge contour and like sort of wild tail screen thing. Yeah,
exactly. But there's basically 3 different looks. But whenever I hear like the pixel art concept alongside the really like sharp, crisp audio, like that's something that really works for me. That really got a hold of me in the game. And also anytime this sort of corruption figure, anytime this darkness encroaches, it encroaches on the audio mix as well. So the audio mix itself starts to get blown out. Like it really implies that it's just like, it's literally not of this world. You can't actually hear when it's around. There's so many really cool touches in there.
Thanks.
On the audio side of it that really got a hold of me. If you have questions in the chat, don't be a stranger. you may be surprised to know that we can expose those questions right up here, and I will direct them to Thomas at a moment's notice. So your game, Olija, reminded me of a lot of games that for me are really formative. They're really formative experiences. What are the games like when you played games as a young person and started to think that that was something that you wanted to do? Like, what were the games that you played that sort of stuck with you and found their way into some of your other projects, which of course we'll get into?
Well, I think one of the first game that really hit me is obviously Another World, or Out of This World.
I was just gonna say we call it Out of This World. You
Mm.
know, I know that that's not universal, but I felt that instantly. Like as soon as I got in, and not like in a bad way, I like in a good way, because that's a tone not enough people mess with.
Yeah, it was a huge inspiration. And at first, actually, the game was much closer to Another World in many ways, like the movement style. The character was heavier.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was it more of like at that time, were you playing around with it more of as like a true adventure type game?
Exactly. Yeah, like Prince of Persia and Another World.
Yes, because Prince of Persia is another one that I think. Well,
Mhm.
that whole awesome like rotoscoped era. It was all good stuff.
So yeah, these were massive influences for me. I mean, especially in Another World. I was really marked by that game, and I was a kid, and I it was not even the first release of it. I was playing it on Super NES.
Okay.
But I remember being really, really marked by that game, and then I kept playing games, various games, and definitely influenced by Ocarina of Time and Half-Life, for sure.
Oh yeah,
And,
Ocarina of Time, and that especially that sort of like unlocking new places to travel with the traversal and with the items, that's in there for sure.
Yeah, I suppose a bit. It's not as advanced as it, mechanically speaking or anything, but
No.
I mean, I don't think I thought consciously about Ocarina of Time while working on it, but it's just part of me by now, so I don't think I can escape it anyway. When you play such games when you're a kid, it just sticks with you forever.
No, it's true. Did you ever? We didn't actually know about this. Apparently, Another World had a sequel.
Yeah. I've seen that.
Did you ever? It's like we didn't know about it. Like, there was this system called the 3DO over here, and then for some reason it came out like on a shared disc. It's like it had the Out of This World on the menu. That it had the sequel, and it's like, what are you talking about? What sequel?
Yeah.
But apparently Eric, I guess he completely disowned it eventually,
Mm-hmm.
and so I mean he doesn't think he doesn't think that there's a sequel either. So that's fine. I have a question from the chat from the Jackal Man, who of course we know as Jack Lemmon. It says Olija's art style gets compared to Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery EP a lot. Why? Was that an inspiration for the game's art style, or what other games or media would you attribute the specific art direction?
I mean, that game, Sword and Sorcery, was also definitely, positively shocked me. I was really amazed when I played it, and it's fun because like I don't think I ever beat it, and I don't think I really got into it on the game aspect of the game design aspect of things, because it's
just the aesthetic,
and the immersion and atmosphere, just walking around, in this amazing little world. That was huge for me. So I don't know if I consciously did anything thinking of that game, but it definitely hit me in some ways. I mean, it has an amazing art direction.
It's pretty shocking. When you first start in there, it's a pretty startling experience for sure.
But for the art style in general, I'd say that I mean, all the references I had, like Another World and other things like that, I never really was satisfied of my drawings enough to compare to them. So I basically drew the game around the constraints of the animations of the characters. I made like very simple characters that can be easily iterated in various animations. I wanted to be really free on that side, always have fun. And I tried lots of things, and it was really really nice for animation. And so the backgrounds are just basically the best I could do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, playing it certainly it doesn't feel like it. The whole thing feels super intentional. If you hadn't told me that, it wouldn't have come across at all.
I mean, I don't have like a great range of possibilities because I'm not like a trained artist or anything. So I basically went with what I could do, and it felt like it was not too much work. I mean, it was lots of work in the end, but
it has to be achievable.
Yeah, achievable. I guess it's
especially if you're taking on, like we were saying, like the serious like pillars of the production on yourself. It has to be something that you can accomplish within your lifetime.
Yeah.
But individual characters, like when you're talking about just like being able to execute the motion in that style, some of my favorite things about the game are actually these very small moments. Like I started going back to Oaktide, which is sort of the town where all your castaways gather, and it's like where you muster before the final fight, right? And I mean, obviously, this is for the chat. You've been there, you know about it. But there's all these little moments with Faraday in sort of like in his room at the sort of end of the pier. He has his own sort of view that looks out. But every time I came back, he was doing something else. And even if I saw one again, I was like, no, it makes sense. And it's like near the end, I kept getting the one where somebody is bringing him food and he hasn't like touched it, and then they leave with it. And I'm like, it's like, for me, even if I saw it multiple times, just this guy really cares about him and he wants to make sure that he's eating. Or he's over here sharpening his blade at the end, or he looks over and a bird's roosted on his bed. Like all those really tiny moments. And it just gets blown out even further when you head back out into the town, and like the dude up on top, that upper level where you can upgrade your health, and he has that weird little munchkin with him, and shit's always breaking up there. I never got tired of it. They were really small moments, but they had a ton of character.
I appreciate you looked at them because it was lots of work.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, somebody saw it. God damn it!
Thanks.
It's me.
Thanks.
Cyclops Sean says, speaking of startling, I got to know for sure, does the main character engage in some light cannibalism in the intro scene?
I don't think that was ever my intention.
This is the headcanon.
I mean, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure which scene you refer to, but I don't think I ever tried to depict cannibalism in this game. I mean, at least between humans.
I was just kidding. But this is the funniest thing. It's like you've like hedged the bet there twice. It's like there isn't cannibalism in this scene between humans, but for cannibalism fans, I mean, what you're hearing right here from lead developer Thomas Olsson is that if you want cannibalism of some kind, Olija is the game for you. So obviously, get ready. That the cannibal community is obviously ready to take full advantage of this unique perspective.
It's a very cannibal-friendly game. Mm.
Yeah, if you will, right on the box. If games had boxes, right? No, but like the farther you get out into the town, all these tiny little introductions. I never got tired of being greeted as Lord Faraday on the way back out, and I also like how every individual person who says your name says it in a different way. It's like, so language in games is one of my favorite bits. And I couldn't, individual words definitely retain, like in the script, it's very clear that specific concepts have specific terms that go with them. But when it comes to the overall sort of like language structure, how you put it together, the voice work is top tier. It is really, really good.
That's nice to hear.
Well, and you were able to do it one time and deliver it globally. What a treat. But is there any structure to the language, or is it just sort of built around the terms that are real and you need to maintain it?
I I mean, if you mean the whole process of doing it, it was all made around constraints as well. And so I was trying to find something that sounded like a real language, or that would evoke something like a real language. I mean, there are several languages in the game, but that was the idea. And I just thought that it would be nice to hear here and there like names and things that would make it feel more consistent or real.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty easy. The concept is that I for each character I take I have a few takes, depending on how much they will be present.
Right.
And so I do some takes with the actors or myself, just including these words, or sometimes it's just these words like Olija or something.
Oh, okay. So it can be built even just around like the specific part that needs to carry the line.
Yeah, so literally, like my audio files are called I don't know, like Boatman Olija short one, Boatman Olija long, Boatman generic one, but Boatman whispering one. And so it's interesting way to proceed, because I think you can get some of the good sides of voice acting.
Yeah.
But you don't have to actually write voice acting, which is extremely hard, and it's a total different job. And yeah, I think you can get some of these nice vibes of voice acting without actually having all the constraints.
Yeah, and the vibe, I think, is the vibe is the main thing that gets projected, and it's certainly like, because everyone is saying the name in a different way. That's the clearest way, at least for me as the player, to indicate that we're talking about multiple languages or multiple people from different areas. Like, one of my favorite characters is this trader. That right before you leave, he's always ready to go, and he's just pumped up. He is ready to go to work. And of course, he's got his own way to say your name. But as soon as you give him 25, he's out. He jumps right on the ship and he's ready to go. It's just that all of the motion in the game is so tasty. Kindled Sky in the chat says, Olija is full of beautiful little touches and details. Are there any details you'd like to highlight from a developer's perspective, either that you're especially proud of or that you think someone might miss, something that's important to you?
I don't think so. No. I don't honestly like. I don't. It might sound weird, but I don't think there is anything. Let me see. No, I'm not sure if there is anything I'd like to highlight personally, because I just want people to sort of find what they like in it, and yeah. I don't feel like it's my honestly, I don't feel like it's my role to highlight these things.
Yeah. I completely understand it. This is something you want people to have their opinions about.
Yeah.
So, which of these did the game basically start when you were playing around with motion? It sounds like it started as an out of this world or something in that concept, where the character is much heavier. Mm-hmm. They're moving around, and it's maybe much more of a game about physically traversing and engaging with puzzles to progress. When did the harpoon come in? Because now you look at it, the whole game is about the harpoon. Like, even the story, there's nothing about the game that's not harpoon oriented.
Yeah, I think it was very it was not intended that way in the first place.
Really?
Yeah, so I was imagining something much more linear, and I mean, it is linear, but it's this guy's a non-linear game. But I was imagining something very linear, and I started off with something really close to Another World in mind, and involving Faraday and Olija as the two main characters.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted Olija to be present during the whole game. I wanted her to be either like a character you can control, or I was not sure about what I wanted to do, but I experimented a bit with two characters on the same screen, and
okay, maybe swapping back and forth, engaging in puzzle play that way.
I tried different things, but I couldn't find something satisfying, and pathfinding was really hard, and so constraints, right? And so also, on the side, I was also working on combat, and because it's something I'm really attracted to in games in general, like fun, almost martial arts style combat. And the harpoon started off as a potential secondary item or mechanic, but the teleporting thing was just pretty fun. So I
It was
kept
too
working
fun,
on it.
right? As soon as you started zipping around, you're like, okay, my game is about harpoons.
And as soon as this thing was in the game, it was almost impossible to go back to normal combat, traditional like 2D combat, because it was really satisfying. And I don't know, I was playing the game a bunch, and each time I was trying to get rid of the harpoon, I thought it was I was feeling a bit naked as a player. And I was like, this harpoon I should probably just go for it and make it the main mechanic of the game. And so I sort of built the story around this harpoon and the scenes with Olija. That also I discovered, that I liked to have her separated from the character, and you met her, and you would meet her like from times to times. I thought it gave a real. There was something precious about meeting Olija from times to times. Like when you meet someone.
It's sad. It emphasizes a big part of the game is about isolation, which is like it's literally called out. And so the more you can emphasize that isolation, the more you're feeling what you were trying to sell the whole time. And I'll tell you, even at the very end, there's a specific animation between Faraday and Olija where they basically clasp hands. I did it like 10 times. It's just a couple frames.
Which one are you talking about?
At the very end, before you leave, like before you complete the game proper.
Oh, when they hold hands.
Yeah, you can walk back,
Mm-hmm.
and I did it many times. I did it so many times. I was like, I wonder if there is an achievement for doing this as many times as I intend to.
Holding her in. I mean,
I'm not saying it's a good idea, but it felt very realistic to me.
It's interesting because like people have very different reactions to that sort of interaction. Some people maybe some people like you are, pay attention to it and sort of feel it in a nice way, but other people just don't really mind and keep going.
I felt so rewarded by it because it's different than the original one. It's different than the initial one. When they say goodbye, you went back and made a custom moment for that person who doesn't want to leave yet. And certainly I appreciated it. My other favorite, there's a bunch of really good Olija moments, honestly, that really, really work. But my favorite is like the first time you go to her island. And then you spend like the whole thing, like walking all the way through to the end, and she's leaving. Like, it's just, you did a good job.
Thanks.
You did. I felt what you were trying to make me feel many, many times, many times in this game. Oh, Kaufman Dave is in the chat also. Says, you've worn so many hats in the making of this game, which obviously could be considered an Olija joke. Did you ever struggle with if you could finish it at all, much less deliver a critically acclaimed title?
Did you ever struggle with it if you could finish it at all? So do you mean did I struggle doing it basically?
Yeah, exactly. Did you? Was it
super hard? Yeah, super hard.
It was brutal.
Yeah, it was a big challenge. Professionally, the biggest challenge of my life, I think. Not that I have many experience, but it was really hard. Like I think the hardest part was during the middle of development when design was not set in stone yet. So towards the end of deciding of systems and design and stuff, it was very hard because I found myself stuck in a sort of vast fog, just nothing around. I don't know where I'm going. I'm not even sure if I'm going to reach anywhere anytime soon.
Right. Well, and there's all these ambiguous systems that you haven't decided on yet, and every one of them impacts the other systems.
You've been working long enough on it not to be really excited by it anymore, but not long enough so that you're done with it or that you're satisfied. So it's a very delicate position, and when you're mostly alone, it's a very tricky position to be in because few people will be able to discuss with you about it and to sort of help you get out of that spot. Sorry,
Oh, for
my
sure.
phone is. Let me just. All right. And so that was like a really tricky, like really more than tricky, like really challenging period. And it ended when at some point I just decided to stop doing research on the design and mechanics, and I was like, okay, enough of this. It's been at least a year and a half or maybe 2.
Yeah.
Now it's time to just set this in stone and polish. And as soon as I just let it go like this, it was much more freeing. It was
Yeah. Well,
much
because
nicer.
then at that point, like the subconscious parts of your brain can work on that while you are doing these sort of intimate like animations, working on these small acts of polish. Like those things are still cooking, like they're still simmering back there somewhere, right? But yeah, I mean, the truth is, it's like it would be so much work to even explain to somebody what your challenge was at that point. Like, there's no one's more intimate with it than you are.
Yeah, and so it gives like it alienates you a bit. Alienates you a bit.
Yes.
You're in a position where you work every day on a virtual world that doesn't exist, and people they don't. So basically, like I mean, you may go a bit nuts. I mean, that's how I felt by myself personally. Like, you start existing on a different plane every day of your life. It's so bizarre,
No, when you're working on something that's so abstract.
And maybe when it's a group and a team, you can exchange with people around you. But when you're alone,
Exactly.
it's just weird because
Well, you have all those anchor points, and then you also have a schedule, and then there's meetings and things like that. Like meetings, generally speaking, are not something that someone enjoys, but they do sort of communicate that we're all on the same plane of existence at some point.
Yeah, and you can just vocalize, your interpretation of the game, and you can sort of push it forward just by talking to people. I mean, you'll have dinner with other people working on the team, and you talk about the game and be excited or be tired, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, or be tired together.
Yeah, be tired together
with other people who are tired for the same reason. Yeah. No, I mean, I have written 5 games, and there was a period of time, and especially when I was the primary writer, and there was no other writer, and so it was me for like every item description. Every character name, like no design stuff, but any piece of text that would be read by the player was my responsibility. And I got to the point during the second one where the issue was how fast I could physically type.
Oh, really?
Like that was the work part of it, right? Where it's just like my mind was just going up against like how fast I could move my fingers on the keys, which was a bizarre and not altogether pleasant feeling. Like just to feel at some point that like my physical body is the problem that I have to surmount.
Have you also like faced often that problem of being over subjective about what you worked on, and did you like call other people to help you, like give a second look on the thing? Or
no, because I think I must have experienced something like what you did, where you get isolated by it, and it's like you're the only one. You feel like you're the only one that really understands it.
Yeah, it's true.
And so that just digs you further down into it, and then eventually later, and then when someone can see it, you don't. I didn't even know if it was good anymore.
Yeah, it's hard.
It got weird, and I think that's probably when you needed the rest of the people in this credits list, to come in at that point and sort of help you push it on to the very end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I would never have made it alone. That's for sure. I don't know. Were there any mechanics or ideas that made it through a good amount of development but had to be cut at the last moment? Yeah, lots of creatures and like content, like monsters. That just didn't feel right, or were not fun enough, or not, just not. Yeah, there was not enough fun in them. Lots of like tiny little bosses, like big guys that have strong levels of power, and you got to dodge them and go back, but they didn't really like fit the design of the game neither, because it's, even though it doesn't look like it is, I think Olija is a very casual game. And so I mean, it doesn't have like a like a Dark Soul like depth or something.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
It's not about dodging. It's just about like it's more like a beat 'em up and with a story on it, or maybe the other way. I don't know. And so yeah, lots of things that like that. Lots of mechanics or creatures or content that would probably belong to another genre in general. I
Yeah.
had to get rid of and accept that it was not part of the flow of the game. It didn't really match the flow of the game.
Yeah. I mean, as it stands, the game, you traverse through it, and everything feels like it's in its place. And so we're probably talking about things that would have taken too much work to achieve, or it's like they wouldn't have fit with this progression.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, so I remember experimenting with. So I mentioned before Olija as well, being a character in game.
Yeah.
I also experimented with like tiny encounters on sea. So you would have like,
oh God, please go into this.
So like you were on the raft, and sometimes randomly Rottenwood, so the clan of the main antagonist clan, would spawn like ships and tiny little boats as well, and so you would encounter boat against boat, and you have to fight on the water. But I didn't really know where to put it in the game, and at some point I was also experimenting with random encounters when you go to places, like let's say on the world map you move from Oakside to another place.
Yeah.
But halfway, you're gonna have an encounter with these enemy ships or whatever. But it didn't feel right. It was just didn't feel like it has its place in the game.
Yeah, it's about destinations. It's about arriving at a new place. It isn't really about getting there. You put your hat on, and then you go.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been trying stuff like that, and lots of monsters. Also, some hats I've been trying, but I was never satisfied with.
That's common with hats.
True.
It happens a lot, honestly. Most hats don't make the grade.
Are you a hat person, Jerry?
Well, I mean, you'd think. I wear a hat for the same reason that Faraday wears a hat, which is to provide or confer some kind of benefit.
Yeah.
For me, it's to protect my flesh from the Daystar. That's it.
I do wear hats for courage. I wear caps to give myself courage sometimes.
That's right. We all need it. So I've spent the last couple days checking out the rest of your Ovra online, and others can join me in this journey as well, because the Thomas Olsson itch.io has all kinds of cool stuff on it related to Ludum Dare, which is like a pretty small scale. It's like a game jam. It's like 48 hours, and then there's a 72-hour version where you can collaborate, right? And there are a bunch of your experiments available on there. And we had talked about this before, because I had grabbed some, and you said, yeah, it seems like somebody is on my page buying my games. I was going to send them a mail. It would have come to me. It would have come to the person that you were going to be talking to anyway.
It's so nice.
But if people like your vibe, they can get a ton more of that vibe from your itch.io page. There's a really interesting sort of card flipping experiment called Black Whist, which is one of the ones that you don't offer pay what you like for, because as you said, it's so, as it stands, it's so simple. But there are some neat ideas there that I would love to. It's like a grim dark version of Memory. Like there's something cool there if you want to mess with it. And card games are hot. And card games are hot as shit right now. So
I sort of want to someday do it, because just to get out of my comfort zone of platformers and stuff, and it's fun just to sort of have a really different way to apprehend games sometimes.
Yeah. And we've talked about that a little bit before, where it's like card games, that's not your main fascination. You're interested primarily in movement, and it shows in your games. But I think precisely because that's not your normal place, there's some neat ideas in there. And if you mess around a little bit in that space, I think that you might find something really, really fun. The individual cards almost remind me of like Hanafuda.
Hanafuda?
Yeah, and so it seems to me like there's big opportunities for your art in the cards. Okay, that's it. I'm Blacklist fan number 1. I'm not gonna talk about it anymore. But Flight to the Gallows has is going to have like the visual look. If people enjoy the look of Olija, there's a lot to like there, and some neat gameplay concepts in there too. I was gonna ask you like what was next, but you just like literally just put out Abyssonaut.
Yeah.
Which is that's a game jam. So that's actually a collaboration between 3 or 4 people, right? So who all worked with you on Abyssonaut?
So it was last weekend, and it's a collaboration between Justin Ma, who's one of the creators of FTL and Into the Breach.
Exactly.
And Kiyomasa Sato, who's a really talented artist here in Tokyo. And my brother Maxim, who also helped with the music, who's doing like music for that game, and myself. And so we worked on that game for the 72 hours, and we finished it. It was really, really freeing to do that game. Honestly, like I didn't have such a fun in a long time. It was
okay. So
that's really
so making a game in 72 hours was actually
fun.
A vacation-like experience for you.
It's more like not like a vacation, more like there's like a town marathon, and you're gonna run to the marathon.
There we go.
And you're exhausted, but you feel so good about it. It was a great experience, and I love doing these. They're super freeing because the job is. I mean, let's be honest. Like the job can be tedious sometimes and exhausting.
Yeah.
But when you reduce that to a weekend, it becomes an adventure. Like a tiny little adventure.
Yeah, there we go. And you know when it will end. I mean, that's the other thing. None of the ambiguity is there. And if you have an idea, you just grab it and shake it and see if it holds up.
And all the constraints you have are really, really healthy for the creative process in general.
Yes. Well, that's what we found. My typical, most of the sorts of work that I do is like inside 3 tiny panels. Like it's inside like the frames of a comic strip. And that's the most freeing thing there is very clear constraints. And if you don't like make things for a living, you might not know like how freeing the constraints are. Like a blank page is not actually freedom.
Yeah, it's pretty terrifying, I think.
Right? And, it's horror. It's pure horror.
That's probably how I get to do games in the first place, because I have such a little range of things I can do. I just go for the only thing I can do, which is some animation and some music, and I can do a bit of everything, but I cannot like do anything I want, and that was never true, and it will never be true. And I think that's really why I get to finish games, And the more you know about making games, and it's probably even harder to just decide what you're going to do, because you have so much choices and possibilities.
Exactly. So something like Ludum Dare comes around. It's this very specific window. It sounds like you built essentially an adventuring party out of friends and people that you trust and respect. And so Flight to the Gallows and Abyssonaut both have hot air balloons, apparently a fascination. But Abyssonaut reminded me of Ridiculous Fishing in a way. Have you ever played Ridiculous Fishing? It's a super old iPhone game. But it's got, there is a lot about it. I mean, people should definitely go and grab it from the itch.io. But essentially, it's about trying to take a balloon down to the bottom of a chasm, get something, and then come back up. But I don't want to tell you how he makes you do it. There is some really, really hot stuff. And again, if you're a fan of Olija's vibe, you should definitely spend some time over in that itch.io just to extend the magic as long as possible. Kaufman Dave says, how did 2020 affect your process for developing games?
I I'm not sure I get the question.
Oh, in terms of
What do you think of my
quarantine, coronavirus.
Oh, sure.
It's
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
possible that it's possible it felt different there.
in that context, yeah, sure. For me, the biggest change was not like the daily work style, because as you can see, I just mostly hide in here and
So it's great. You're already quarantined.
And I mean, I'm a self quarantined already, but I mean, I'm also like I like to go out, I like to go to bars and have drinks, but I also had a baby, so no more bars, So, and
They come back. Trust, as I've been in this position, trust me, the bars come back.
But work wise, I guess the biggest change was I really miss game shows. I super miss game
God,
shows.
tell me about it. Tell
Yeah,
me about it. I mean, that defined my life.
sure.
Like I was going to 5 PAX shows a year, and I
Yeah.
have as long as there were those shows.
It's huge. And when you get so much time to game development, and when you go to a game show, you basically go to meet your friends, and so you don't see even if you see these guys like twice, 3 times in a year. I mean, they are friends, and so it's really there is a big hole in my life because of this, I think. And
Yeah.
I was always looking forward to go to a game show because it's always like a sort of good midterm objective and deadline. I'm thinking of not just Bit Summit here in Kyoto, which is a really great event, but also like Busan Indie Connect in Korea, where I love to go as well. Taipei Game Show,
So you're a connoisseur of the gaming shows.
Not really. Just there's these around me because they're so close from here. It's so easy to go there, and so I would go there every year. I've been only once to GDC and stuff like that. I don't think I've ever been to a game show in Europe, bizarrely. And so these like around Japan game shows were for me like very important. Always inspiring to meet other developers and listen to the stories and share. Always nice to see players try your game and be able to talk with them and get feedback and see like surprising reactions, or kids that play your games. Kids, I never think about having kids play my game, but like in game shows, there's like some random kid shows up and plays the game. It's so hilarious to see kids play. It's so nice.
Well, you can learn a lot.
Yeah,
because they don't really necessarily know about politeness yet. You can get you can get some very good information very quickly from the young. For sure. Well, hey, we hope to see you at some point at one of the PAX shows.
I want to go.
I would love to shake your hand in a better world than the one that we have. Precious chat. Thank you so much for rolling through. This has been Thomas Olsson of Skeleton Crew, creator of Olija and a number of other experiences that I recommend you go check out on their itch.io page at your leisure. Thanks so much for coming through, Thomas.
Thanks for having me, Jerry. It was nice. I can't believe it's already time. It was really nice.
It sneaks up on you. It sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
Let me know when you have something new we can talk about it, and we'll do it again.
Okay, nice. Would love to.
See ya.
Thank you very much.